My guest today is Sunny Desai. Sunny is a CEO of Desai Companies, which is a holding company of more than 150 million in assets under management. Thanks a lot for coming to the Holdco Builder show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Let's get started with you sharing your background all the way from university.
I like to tell the story. And I'll give it a 10,000 feet view. But I graduated college and did a double major in real estate and banking and finance. I knew two things that I wanted to be true. One was I did not want to work for anyone, and two, I did not want to be in the hotel business. Only one of those things came true. I don't work for anyone. But when I got out of college, my father my family's been in the motel business for, probably 30 years. And my father wanted to build a hotel a little north of where we lived. And, I took it as an opportunity to kind of a gap filler, do that in the interim while I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. But then I ended up enjoying the process. Every day was different. It was challenging. I learned a lot about real estate development, and I essentially turned that into a business model. We started raising capital and doing hotel development deals. Fast forward 4 or 5 years after that, we had done 4 or 5 projects, and things are going pretty good. But then I made some mistakes, and we can probably cover that a little later. But almost took me under bankruptcy, and I was able to power through that. One of the biggest reasons I would say I would owe to that is I hired a CEO coach at the time, and he does exclusively, his company does exclusively M&A. And so that has been my guide and my teacher for the last seven years. That's how I was able to transform that. It was essentially a vertically integrated hotel company to now more of a holding company that actively acquires and I like to say acquires and grows businesses.
So today you manage a diverse portfolio of assets. Could you provide an overview of what type of businesses and investments your company is involved in?
Yeah, since my initial founding and growth was all in hotels, most of our companies are deal with hotels, hotel management, hotel construction, hotel renovation, and just raising capital is more real estate generic. So we're doing different asset classes within real estate, but our foundation, I like to tell people, was based in was hotels. Warren Buffett's, and I'll quote him a lot. Him and Charlie Munger, I think, were somewhat my teachers, and kind of growing a holding company. But they say, they talk about circle of competence a lot, and there's a couple ways of getting that. And for me, it was really being in the business. So if you know hotels really well, it's you can touch the ancillary businesses that are in that industry and know how they operate fairly quickly. And then from there, you can build a really good baseline and then start to expand out from there. Take a little bit more risk at a time.
Do you usually develop them from scratch or you acquire one and then you just improve the operations?
Our hotels or
Yeah,
companies?
hotels.
Yeah, at the beginning of my career, it's all ground up development. More recently, it was acquisitions, just because the pandemic left some interesting opportunities on the table. It was a very low rate environment, and there was a lot of hotels being auctioned off because of owners not wanting to make their interest payments. So it was a unique time. So we bought a little more recently, but primarily we're hotel developers from the ground up.
And when we compare size-wise, how much revenue comes from hotels and how much revenue comes from the business side of the companies?
Right now, it's probably 60% hotels, and then 40% outside other businesses.
When it comes to the other businesses, this is how many acquisitions you make per year, or how does it work?
We try to focus on three or less. I think above three, it becomes very hard to stay focused and and limiting the acquisitions to three or less. Make sure that you're only doing the best deals.
What is the best deal for you when it comes to, let's take the last 3 acquisitions you've made? Can you maybe give us an overview of what type of businesses they were and why you decided to buy them?
Yeah, I'll just give you one really good one. I think that would give you a lot of context. It was a hotel renovation company, and what we were looking for, very first thing is consistent revenue. And the key thing that about hotel renovations is that these brands, they require hotels to be renovated in certain cycles every 7 and 14 years. And so we knew that coming in as because we're hotel owners, and I knew that I could always find hotels to renovate. On top of that, it was we have our own hotels, so that we were driving our own business to that company. I also knew that there was a shortage of hotel renovation companies in the United States. Well, this is not common knowledge, right? Because you have to be in the industry to understand what what these intricacies of this industry are. And so that made me very comfortable. And with M&A, with this size business, there wasn't a big buying pool, so we were very very limited options. We felt like for the sellers, and we were able to negotiate some very safe terms for us. With seller financing and earnouts and and the whatnot.
Now, when it comes to the traditional businesses you have in your portfolio, how much of a revenue from this company come from taking care of the hotels you manage versus the hotels you don't manage and own?
So you said hotel manage and own. So we own and operate every single hotel that we
Mhm.
own. I have investors, so it's not 100% me, but we only manage currently our own hotels. On the renovation side, we have not even renovated the first hotel of our own, so it's all outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the say capital partners, you're a long-term holder, as you say on your homepage. What you see is the biggest benefit comparing with typical private equity firms, where they have to sell their uh, assets and purchases within 5 to 7 years, when you can make a decisions to hold them pretty much forever.
Yeah, so for us, it was more, I think it takes a lot of time and effort to really get a company where you want it to get. And once it's there, it's almost on autopilot. Why go through the hassle of selling it and then trying to find another investment? Private equity guys may tell me, oh, the IRR is going to be higher. Yeah, that's true. But I look at it from Berkshire Hathaway model, like it's compound interest. If you can make 20% year over year and compound that, and you have less headache, like what's the point of selling? I think the PE guys mostly have, the investor mandates, right? If you have institutional capital, they're not going to want to hold for more than the 5 and 7 years. For us, we're not held down by that. A lot of these deals that we do with internal capital, so we don't have any restrictions. Sometimes we'll raise money for acquisitions, but it probably has to be a bigger deal.
Do you guys ever sell a business, or you pretty much hold them forever?
Have not sold a business yet. I've sold a couple of hotels just because, quite frankly, just bad investment decisions. We learned from them. Either the markets were too small or the hotels were too old, and we realized later, so we ended up selling. But we have not sold a business yet.
Being a CEO, do you see yourself making a different type of investment decision when you know that you don't need to sell the business within the 5 to 7 years?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Like if someone asks you if you want to sell something and you keep saying no, the price keeps going up. They keep offering you more money. And I like that. I like that. If we ever had to sell, I think we could sell. Scarcity drives value.
Maybe more a general question. What is your investment philosophy, and how has it changed over the past, let's say, 3 years?
Definitely more M&A. I think the market is ripe for that. You have a aging population. It takes a good bit of time and effort to really learn M&A. Financing is probably the hardest part, and we've gotten a lot better about that over the years. And so with that, I think we'll be more more to acquiring companies than doing more real estate. Real estate will always be a part of our business because of the obvious tax advantages of accelerated depreciation, but we feel like we can generate more cash on cash return from acquiring businesses.
You mentioned before that you hired a M&A coach, right? Or was it the CEO coach?
CEO coach, yeah, he just
Mhm.
happens to do M&A.
Okay, okay. Can you maybe share what you know now, which you didn't know before, and which was like a eye opener for you? Like, oh my God, I didn't even think about this. Is there anything?
Yeah, all of it. So, when someone would have told me before I hired, before we started working together, somebody would have said, "Oh, I buy companies." I would have said, "How does that work? Like, how do you value a company? How do you finance it?" And but having my coach, it helped a lot because he was able. It's like having somebody there to answer every single question you have and walking you through the process. You're skipping 20 years of learning, by having someone who's been there and done that. Before we started the podcast, you were like, you're trying to learn from people 10, 15 years ahead of you. That's exactly what a CEO coach does. And I've just benefited so much from him that I've actually started, bringing on my own clients because I want to help them kind of grow through the same process as I did. I just feel like it was such a huge game changer. I just quite frankly, I was stuck in this business of like hotels, and I thought it's when you have a hammer, you think everything looks like a nail, but then when you have a toolbox like M&A, you can use different tools to fix your issues, and it was just so eye opening that you could acquire a business that someone had spent 30 years building, and then use all the methodologies that how to run your business and just to improve it using technology. Like we use OKRs and traction, the Gino Whitman's book. So we use all that and we implement it into our company, our current company. So if you can take that and apply it into new companies that you're acquiring, the goal is to take it from, let's call it 2-3 million in EBITDA to 10. And it becomes easier once you have some of those tools. But to answer your question, I knew nothing. Now I know a lot more. I don't know everything, but I know a lot more than I did before.
Okay. Did you have any like fears or ego holding you back before making this decision? Or where did you get
Yeah.
this idea of, okay, I should probably hire a coach? Because a lot of people there, they just think they have to figure things out themselves.
Yeah. I alluded to earlier, I was in a very tough time. I felt like constant feedback from everyone. I was a very hard worker. And I was doing the work, but sometimes it's not what needs to be done. It's like figuring out how it needs to be done the most effective way. And having someone to talk to is very important. So that's why I made that decision. As it was a time where I didn't really have the money to pay him, but I paid him, and I made it a priority to because somebody in his position, his time is very valuable. So you have to show the willingness to invest in that person's time for them to invest back in you. They don't need the money. It's not about the money. It's about you showing that it's important enough to you to make that investment.
Now, a little bit about your decision-making process. For example, my partner always says that when we have to talk about something important or make a decision, he always says that let it marinate for 24 hours and let's talk about that again tomorrow at the same time. Is there anything special or unusual about your decision-making process?
So first of all, I would agree with your partner. Any major process, any decision, you need to sleep on it. It's amazing how clear your mind can be in the morning if you get a good night's rest. You can attack it fresh. And sometimes it's really bothering you. You're probably not going to sleep well because you're going to wake up middle of the night thinking about it a lot. So that happens to me a lot. But I think that's healthy because it forces your brain to kind of think through all the different options. Our process, I think it's a little different. What my CEO coach taught me, it's called journaling. It's more like a planner, but we call it journaling. And it's a way where we start with the end in mind. We kind of plan your whole life and we work backwards into daily actions. And that helps a lot of our decision making process because we know from every single day, every single morning, where we're trying to get to. And if that decision aligns with that path, then you know what decision to make. If it doesn't, you can obviously switch gears. I was introduced to a process it's called journaling. It's more like a life planner, but the process is you build out kind of what you want out of life, and it doesn't have to be money. It's just kind of like where you want your life to end up, and then you kind of work backwards: yearly goals, quarterly goals, and then daily actionable items. And when it comes to decision making, it becomes a lot easier when you know where you want to end up in life. So if that decision aligns with that goal or not. And there's all these other different decision making processes, but I think that's the one that's probably helped me out the most.
Can you maybe share or give an example of a recent very difficult decision you had to make, and you were thinking a lot about this, you maybe you maybe sleep on it for 24 hours, and then you finally made it?
Yeah, it was one decision, and I won't go into the detail because it's still in action, but we felt like we were wronged by a certain group of people. And I had tried over and over again to meet with that group to try to resolve the situation. But at the end of the day, every time I tried to do a resolution, they always kind of pushed back and wanted. It was causing a lot of issues for our company, so I had to file a lawsuit. You know, I've always told, and I always like to avoid legal at all costs because it's draining. But after thinking about it, I knew that the only way it's like a sometimes if you're growing up, in elementary school, you get bullied, the best thing to do is punch the bully in the mouth so they realize they're not scared, that you're not scared of them. And so I think that was a tactic that we had to decide on. It was again, no specifics, but it was just that was a pretty tough decision because I knew it was going to be a time and money investment to prove our point and hopefully get it resolved.
Now, talking a little bit about the tweets you made on Twitter. You're not very active, but you post once in a while some really good stuff, and I looked at it. So there is one, and by the way, another thing about Twitter, I think it's why I love it so much is that it actually shows how a person thinks in a certain time period. And in your case, your post was last year in 2022, 1st of July, and you posted something like, once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain: when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. Do you remember what made you to write like this, write a post like this, and what was the storm in your life?
Yeah, so it's actually what I was talking about earlier, that difficult time with almost going bankrupt. And I didn't really realize I was out of it. And I guess you said that was last year. And it was when I really started thinking, I was like, wow, I think I just solved all those issues. There was a lot of problems. And then one by one, I had just focused and, gotten them out of the way. But, I was always focused on just doing the best and taking that next step. Those three things today, kind of one day you kind of look back and you're like, man, I think I'm done with that and my life is progressing forward and we're doing new things and, business is fun again. So that's where that came from. But, the main reason I write stuff like that is I want to have gratitude for the life lessons that I went through. I'm a better person today because of that.
I would add one more, which you did even 2 months before. Uh, Grow your business so much that your mom gets worried you can't handle it. So, a little bit about you. You have 150 million assets under management. You're running a massive business. I believe there is some type of stress. So, is your mom worried, or is there anything to be worried about?
Absolutely. She says it to me all the time. She said, "You have enough, stop growing." And that's why I wrote that. And she'll probably never listen to this podcast, but she tells me just probably about once a month that I've got too much going on. And her main question is like, how do you handle all this stuff? And like, well, don't you get worried about this and that? And I actually don't stress a lot. So I feel like once you've done the research and homework and you've grown yourself internally, you can make well calculated decisions. But also, what's the worst that's going to happen? If you have your health, you don't really need anything in life. You know, you just need your family and your friends.
Reading your story, you have Indian origins, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I have had some Indians on the show before. When I used to live in Melbourne, Australia, I even shared a room with one Indian guy, and I've been lucky enough. All of them have been very successful. 90% of them have been entrepreneurs. So the question for you: what makes Indian origins such great entrepreneurs and leaders? Because we have like in a massive scale CEO of Microsoft, CEO of Alphabet, Adobe, IBM, Mastercard. They're all Indians. What is the special sauce?
So this is a theory. There's no facts behind this. This is just a theory. So a couple different reasons, I think. One is that in India, there's, a caste system, right? This is not as prevalent today as it was 50 years ago, obviously. But what that happened over time is that it creates caps on growth. You're not able to push through to middle class to become independently wealthy. Again, a lot less now than it was back then. But if you look at my parents, I mean, it's been 30 years since they left. Most Indian families move and go to a foreign country like the United States or Australia because they lack opportunity. And so because they lack opportunity, when they get there and they have this opportunity, they will work harder and to try to create a lifestyle for them and their families. So the second generation, the kids of the immigrants will usually see that, and then they will want to keep that growing. And so you probably see a lot of the successful people, and there's a lot. But I think that has a lot to it. We all grew from humble beginnings and were instilled with a lot of hard work in our childhood. The second part that you mentioned about the CEOs of these large Fortune 500 companies, I don't know why, but one theory I have there is that I think just Indians in general are now being seen more as hardworking, intelligent group of men or people. I mean, even women, and so I think they are progressing up the corporate ladder a lot faster.
And fortunately, I've met many of the parents, and the jokes they have between each other, I really like them, and the humble part as well. One of the favorite stories for me is I think now it's the former chairman and CEO of Pepsi company, the lady called Indra Noji. When she was promoted to be CEO of Pepsi Cola, she came home, and then her mother sent her back to the store to buy the milk because she had forgotten. And then Indra said to her mom, like, "Aren't you proud? I just accomplished something unimaginable." And the mom said something, "I'm proud of you, but at home you're just my daughter. So go now and buy the milk." Okay, now a little bit about the mistakes. I assume we all have made some, and maybe you as well. You've said that you often tell to your team that it's okay to make mistakes. We just have to learn from them. If we aren't learning from mistakes, we aren't growing. First of all, what is your view on mistakes? And maybe you can give us a specific example of something which have happened recently where your employee maybe made a mistake. Maybe it was a marketing, spent too much on marketing or whatever it could be. And how did you solve it, and how you overall see people making mistakes, and how are your comments about this?
My general thought process around mistakes is it's about empowerment more than anything else, right? Because if your team is always, if they're scared to make mistakes, they're going to wait to make decisions until they can make sure they're okay with if you're okay with that decision. Well, I think that's counterproductive, because if someone's always scared of making that mistake or making that decision, they're never truly going to be empowered. And if they're not empowered, they're never going to grow. I think the right amount of fear of any decision, it leads to growth. So if you're able to conquer that fear, make that decision, knowing that it's not going to be the end of the world, and you can still learn from it, I think you're going to learn faster. Also, selfishly for me, the more that they can take ownership of that decision, the quicker they grow. But also, that's the less they rely on me, so it frees up my time to go do something else. So I think as executives keep wanting to grow themselves, they have to have a team of people underneath them that they can trust to make the right decision. But you're not going to ever find anyone that has the ability to make all the right decisions. You just have to be able to live with the mistakes, and set some ground rules too. I would say, like, if it's a large sum of money, yeah, you should probably double check. But if it's a quick decision, I think Bezos had this thing he says along there's two types of doors. There's a one-way door and a two-way door, right? The decisions that have two-way doors, you can make that decision, but if you can come back through that door, it's fine. Go ahead and make that decision. But if it's a one-way door, like selling a company, that's a very important decision that should be thought through. That one-way doors, I'd probably run up the flagpole just to make sure.
Talking a little bit about the challenges and maybe key times in your life. I'm just giving you a quick story about myself. When I was 23, I just decided to move from Europe to Australia for 2 years to learn the language, to study, start the business, and to eventually sell the business. And I have 2 years to do that because of the visa. And this was a very tough times, a lot of failures, a lot of time spent on my own, but at the same time, a lot of time for thinking and really putting on the paper the life I would like to live, something you mentioned before. And I can honestly say that this 2 year period living on my own, starting a business, selling a business, it really made me who I am today. Can you say that there has been some type of period in your own life where you can really say that, okay, this was the time when maybe it was really tough, maybe it wasn't, but it really made you who you are today?
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this period. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. It was a hotel project that was stuck, and I had a lot of opposition, a lot of people that did not want me to finish that hotel because they were going to profit from that. I was borrowing money from friends and family to get the hotel finished, and we eventually did. But it was so stressful through that whole process. It was tough. It took me. I think I read it. Yeah, it was a book I read that was really enlightening at the time. It's called "Man's Search for Meaning" by Viktor Frankl. How he kept a positive mindset through the Holocaust. And reading that book really gave me perspective of, if I think I have times, if my times are tough, look at what Victor went through, and to able to keep a positive mindset. And from that time, I took I stepped away from the public limelight. I stopped going to events and stuff, and I really wanted to focus on myself. Started reading a lot, working out, mental exercises like meditation, just to try to become the best version of myself. And it took some time. And it was 2 or 3 years of just grinding, trying to get better and refocus myself. And it eventually came out and it worked. But I am so grateful for that, because if I never would have went there, I would have been the same guy that I was before. And I think that would have been kind of sad.
Thanks a lot for sharing this. That's a great story. A little bit about the positive stuff now. Can you share? Can you share a success story or an investment decision that had a significant impact on your career and maybe even the performance of Desai companies?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the first M&A deal we did, and I won't talk about details because I don't know if I can share that, but essentially, it was the first time that we had closed a major acquisition deal, and the creative structure behind it. We used a little bit of bank debt, used some seller note, and used some earnout. Essentially, it was a very favorable structure for us because we limited our downside risk, and the business was very profitable. And what happened at the end of it, the day that I closed it, um, my net worth went up a lot just because of simply the valuation differences from the time we signed the LOI to the time we closed. The business had already increased because we were working with the business to try to help it improve. So that was the first time I kind of realized I was like, I could create my own luck a little bit, by working hard to find these deals and then creating a structure. Um, I think that would probably be one of the best ones so far. There's been some hotel deals that have worked out really well, but with creative structure, when I started, I didn't really have any money, so we used to use government source funding to get free equity and stuff, and it was always creative capital. But that I guess that'd be the other ones.
Okay, and going over smoothly from here, having a bit of success, we should reward ourselves. And you've said something that at the age of 23, you opened your first hotel. At the time, it was a major accomplishment for me. To celebrate, I bought an expensive watch. I still wear it every day. I'm not sure is it the one you're wearing today, but the accomplishments from hard work are hard to forget. My question is, what about today when having a great year or closing a great deal or selling a business for a great profit? How do you reward yourself today?
So yes, I'm wearing the same watch. So it's been, I guess, what, 13 years since we're wearing this watch. But I don't really do that anymore. My thought at the time, I was very young, had a lot of ego, and I was, hey, every hotel I open, I'm going to buy a watch. That didn't happen. Uh, I I don't actually reward myself. I know that sounds pretty bad because I live a pretty good lifestyle. I play as much golf as I want, and I enjoy working with the team that I work with, and the deals get me excited. Occasionally, occasionally I'll buy a car or something that, but I'll always, it's just one car. I'll cycle it in and out, you know. But yeah, that's about it.
Fair enough. Now, you mentioned before reading, and when looking at your Twitter, I can see you're an avid reader, and I think in 2021 you even read like one book a week.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 50. I did a public challenge to myself, and it's always harder when you make it public. I read a book a week, 52 books in a year. It was a tough process. It's a lot of reading. But I learned a lot that year. The thing about reading is that if you can read about different subjects over the span of a longer period of time, you can start to tie things together, like different concepts. I read a lot of investment books, and that's why I learned a lot about like Buffett's philosophy. And he didn't really, I don't think he wrote any books, but there's a lot of people have written books about him, and there's things that start to merge. And I kind of took a lot of what he was talking about and implemented into our own company. Top of that, like self-improvement books and working out and all this, like it's there, the more you read, the more you learn. And it's not about just one book. What you end up finding out is that if you read 5 books about one subject, you start to see the things that are very common between the 5, and there's something about repeating those thoughts in your mind that helps you stick.
Is there any book specifically which you would recommend right away for that made you a better investor, or it's just an overall information about Charlie and Warren Buffett?
Yeah, the essays of Warren Buffett, I think, would be a good one to start with because it takes all his annual letters and it breaks it down into sections it's a pretty easy read, but it tells you a lot about their philosophy on investing.
Like in the world of finance, staying updated is obviously very, very important. How do you keep yourself informed about industry trends and developments?
Newsletters, actually. I know that sounds like a simple answer, but I'll subscribe to a newsletter. I'll read it for a few months, and if it sticks, it sticks. If I don't really like it, I'll unsubscribe. There's been a couple that I think have been really interesting. If you're talking about investing, the Investors Podcast, they just came out with a new one over the last few months, and always have some very insightful topics that they cover. I try not to. I don't watch the news. I feel like it's not healthy. um, and I do subscribe to certain newspapers just for articles and stuff, but try to keep it very minimal. Because our thought process is more long term. We don't really base any of our investment decisions off short term stuff.
You mentioned Charlie and Warren Buffett. They talk a lot about the thinking time. That men these days, they don't take the time to think about stuff. They just do do a lot of stuff at the same time. You mentioned you play a lot of golf, but how much thinking time do you have in a week or in a day, or how is it usually for you? Are you just playing golf, or it's just you sitting in office with pen and paper, putting together plans for the future, thinking about stuff? How does it work for you?
So ideally, the way I've structured my day is I don't have any meetings in the morning. In the mornings is when I respond to emails and then read and do my strategic planning and work on the biggest issues that I have. And then I'll reserve the afternoons for reactive stuff, right? So mornings is more proactive, things that we can move the needle forward. And the afternoons more for reactive, like meetings and phone calls and stuff like that. I pause my inbox so I don't get any new emails until the afternoon. I put my phone on do not disturb, so I truly believe like thinking time is one of the best things you can do. Do I do it every day? No. Do I wish I could? Yes. But sometimes life's demanding, and you have to take a meeting in the morning or do a podcast in the morning. I think it's super impressive what Buffett has done. If he's able to run that big of a company and still have all the time to read and think as much as he does. But I also think that makes him a better investor. If you look at what he did, he became obsessed with having free time, but making the best investment. So buying businesses that can operate on their own and let them go run, and having great managers, and then go back to thinking. That's impressive. I wish I could get there. I'm trying, but it's going to take some time.
Let's talk a little bit about the core values of Desai Companies, because on your website you're saying that the Desai Companies philosophy is structured around the core values of karma, which is K, knowledge; A, appreciation; R, revolutionary; M, moral; and A, authenticity. Can you share a little bit about each of those?
We created those, I think, 6, 7 years ago, and it's stuck. And I think people, first of all, are drawn to the karma piece of it. It's really one of the basic principles of treat others how you want to be treated, and then if you do good things in life, you'll get rewarded in the end. And that is the basic principle of karma, and I think people like that. And then we just took the letters and kind of talked about our culture, and obviously we just talked about reading books, and that knowledge is a huge piece of that. I push my team to read a lot. I think that's been the hardest part. People just aren't natural readers, so it takes a little bit to push them to do that. Appreciation, I think, that goes along with showing that your team members you care and that you value their work with you, not for you, but with you. Revolutionary, we're always thinking outside the box. Like, how can we do things a little different? I'll just drop one kind of nugget of information. Like, we utilize a virtual team. So majority of our corporate team member live outside the United States. And so we own a business in the United States, but our support team is outside the United States. We call it like a labor arbitrage. We're not the only people that do that, but it's I think we're 10, 15 years ahead of most other companies. Morale, spirit of positivity. No matter what's going on, try to take the positive side of everything. And authenticity, I think if you read on the website, it says, be the person your dog thinks you are. And there's been a lot of different interpretations of that. But For us, there's no reason to be fake. Just be who you are, and we're going to accept you no matter what. And um, that I think is also important to create in that culture.
Talking a little bit about money and happiness, and before you mentioned reading a lot of books, and some of those books were self-help books. And now talking to you, we haven't met in real life, we haven't really spoken before. You really seem like really relaxed and happy. And as you mentioned, you're playing a lot of golf. That means you're working out. What are your thoughts about money and happiness? And are those things coming together, or what are your views?
So two different views. One, I'll kind of start with a quote that I think time is our only currency. So when I say that, I'm saying that you when you're born, you have in your mindset you have all this time in the world, and you're taking risks and stuff. But as you get older, you have you get in the 70s and 80s, you have very little time. But you have money. You don't have any money when you're born, and so what I think money is useful for is buying time. So if you're working for someone, you're trading your time. You know, you're getting paid $10, $20 an hour. You're trading your hour for $20, and then you're trading that dollar for your car or your house. That's like a perpetual cycle of being stuck. Owning a business, it's a completely different story, right? Because you can own multiple businesses and they can generate income and pay off the debt, and they can be free cash flow for life. So what does that create for you? It creates time. Creates time to spend with your family, do the things you love to do. For me, it's playing golf or whatnot. And I think having that time to do the things that you love to do creates the happiness. But that's two-sided. I mean, you can have those things and still not be appreciative of what you have. So it's a little bit of that mindset too, having the gratitude. Um, there's two good books I'll kind of leave you with. I love dropping these books. The Psychology of Money. That's one that I think talks about the relationship between happiness and money, and the other one is the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I think that was such an amazing book that talks about expectations, and he's kind of become like a modern day philosopher on wealth and happiness, which is really interesting.
You've been in the business for 15, 20 years. How and if has your relationship to money changed over time?
I used to treat money like the end goal, and now I treat it as a resource. I only pay myself a certain salary, and I don't spend outside of that. And it's a game now. It's a game. Can you take that? Can you take that capital and reinvest it at a high rate of return and create something bigger than yourself? That's the way I treat it now.
And what business and money advice you know now that you wished you knew in your early 20s?
Liquidity is key. I wish I would known that. Building up liquidity was so important. I wish I would have understood how the banking system looks at liquidity and the impact it has.
What are your goals and aspirations for Desai Companies, and what can we expect from your company in coming years?
So, I mean, I like to tell people I'm building a mini Berkshire Hathaway in my own realm, so starting with hospitality and branching out. So I think as I keep learning and growing, we're going to keep expanding into different areas of business. And just I'm going to continue to keep having fun. I think it's really cool trying to do this in a small state in the South. Mississippi, it's not glamorous, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and there's some really good people here. So
Good. So let's wrap up with famous five. I'll ask you a question, and you just give me a short answer. Okay?
okay,
How old are you?
36.
Favorite book?
I think I'd have to say the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Married, single, kids?
Engaged. I have one kid, one child.
What car do you drive?
I drive a pickup truck. It's a red GMC. Yeah.
What's the best investment advice you've ever got?
I know you said Fast Five, but that's a tough one. the money is made on the buy. And it took me a while to figure out what that meant, but always look for the best deals because you make your money on the buy and you're not going to really improve it. So if you only focus on finding the best deals up front, it makes everything a lot easier because there's less risk.
Perfect. And last one, where can people find you?
I know you mentioned a lot on Twitter. I actually post a lot more on LinkedIn. So where you can follow me on LinkedIn and on Twitter, I'm not that active, but I follow good people. I like your post a lot, and I've commented on a few, and I think Twitter is an awesome resource. So just a wealth of knowledge in very specific areas. So I've got Twitter and LinkedIn. I think are my two platforms that I use.
Thanks a lot for doing that, Sunny. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great, great talk.